Good morning. It's about 10:55 on a Friday. Happy TGIF. This is Jason Dean, Film Fanatic YouTube channel. If you have a chance, please like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate all the great support and love I've been getting with doing this weird thing that I spend a lot of time doing. So it's super fun. I've been really excited and pretty jazzed about some of the reviews I've been doing. They've been getting a lot of hits, so that's been really cool. I have a couple that are almost at the 900 views point, so that's been really exciting. I was one of the things that I was reluctant with making that transition, say from Facebook, the Facebook Live videos that I had been doing to the YouTube thing. One of the things that I loved and that was attractive to me about doing the Facebook thing through Film Fanatic, where I would do the live, basically the same thing that I'm doing now, but I would do it through Facebook Live, was that anybody who's following you and whatnot gets notified, and so you're like automatically whenever you go live, you more or less you have an audience and you have people that know instantly that your stuff is going live. So you're kind of guaranteed to a degree an audience right away, which has been great, and it's helped. When I started doing those videos last year, it really helped build the channel. Mostly around obviously the Facebook page that I have, Film Fanatic, and then I started the Instagram page. So it helped all around with that, with getting a lot of traffic and people liking the page and checking out the content. And plus, I've been learning, and I still keep learning about this whole wacky thing. So, and I knew like with YouTube, it's quite a bit harder to get, to get people to, you're not guaranteed that kind of audience right away when you go live, or at least with the videos, it's a little bit hard to get likes and those kinds of things. But I've been really pleasantly surprised with making this transition to where now all the videos that I'm doing for Film Fanatic are only on YouTube. I've been really excited because I feel like I'm reaching more of an audience now than I did with Facebook, because some of the videos are at like 900 views, so it's been awesome. And so that's been really great, and I really appreciate people checking out the videos and listening to me ramble about these weird things that I love. So yeah, cheers. So on Film Fanatic News, I'm going to be doing an interview with one of the actresses from the Friday the 13th films. Um, I did a big show on the whole Friday the 13th franchise about a month ago. It's my favorite franchise of all time, definitely my favorite horror franchise. And that was a show or shows of where I did the entire franchise, and then I also did movies that were 2 degree spin-offs of the Friday 13th universe. So I figured it was a lot of fun. There was definitely some work involved, and it was a lot of videos, but it was super fun watching each one together. I figured why not do something special around it. So I had this idea of if I could get somebody who was actually involved with one of the films to be on the show, that would be super cool and amazing. And luckily, I was able to do that and line it up. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be happening probably within a week or so, and I'll be having a really special guest on Film Fanatic. I've done like 4 or 5 shows in the past of where I've had guests on the show, and I've noticed that not only do I really love doing it, I learn a lot, especially people who are directly tied in with the industry of filmmaking. But I also learn a lot, and it also is something that I notice really helps the channels. It helps everything all around, where they seem to get a lot of hits. And so I'm very, very excited to have this special guest coming up. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be happening pretty soon. And one of the things too, like I've mentioned before, I like to try to put light it's not really about me. It's really about the movies for all of the stuff. With the YouTube channel that I now have, and the Facebook page, and the Instagram page. They're all about trying to shed some light on a lot of films that are on the underground, in the underground kind of scene, or under the radar. And I feel like a lot of these films have really, not only for me personally, they're a source of fun and entertainment, but they're also really inspiring to me artistically, and I just really enjoy the hell out of them. And I feel like there's a lot of great modern horror films that have come out the last few years. Movies say like one of my favorites I was just talking about with somebody the other day was Ty West's film X, which I think is an amazing film. I'm really excited about seeing the prequel. I haven't seen it yet, but X is one of just a great, fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, I did a show on that on Facebook a while back and did a review. But tremendous movie. Um, and the thing about the that movie X that I really loved was that it was kind of a throwback. It was kind of a retro film, but then it was also very modern. But it had this real retro feel. It very much reminded me of um, something that came out in the '70s. I feel like it was very much influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously, but it has a real '70s vibe, and I feel like it was really inspired by a lot of the classic slasher films, the great slasher horror exploitation films that came out in the '70s and '80s. And I feel like this Ty West X really was very, very much influenced by a lot of these films that I cover on this channel. But yet he was doing something new. He's not blatantly necessarily ripping it off. He's doing something new, and he's got his own voice because he's a very talented director. But you can see his influences, and I love that. So the focus of this channel is not only do I try to stay up to speed and on par with a lot of new stuff, because there is a lot of amazing there's a lot of there's so many great new movies coming out. But I but the main focus of the channel is to go back to the old school stuff, the deep cuts that might have films that say Ty West grew up watching that had a real big inspiration for, say, a movie like X. So I try to focus on those films that really, you know, really came to inspire the new thing, or the new stuff that's out, and in particular his work. So I usually try to focus on that, but at the same time I try to mix things up. I'm going to be doing another series, which I'm actually excited about, and I like to change things up. Again, the focus is primarily on this whole weird thing that I do. Focus has mostly been on lots of grindhouse cinema films, but I also, like I said, try to cover a lot of new things. And I'm a huge fan of a lot of superhero films. I'm a Marvel guy. I'm a Batman person, at heart, and I do like some of the DC movies, but I'm very much a Marvel guy. So I'm going to do another series coming up to change things up a little bit on the Avenger movies. I recently just got Endgame on Blu-ray, so I'm very excited about doing a review on all of those movies. So that's going to be coming up soon. That will be the next kind of series. So this brings me to today's show, which is about this movie called Faceless that came out in 1988. And this movie was directed by Jess Franco. And Jess Franco, I knew growing up, I've seen some of his films because he's so prolific. Probably out of a lot of these Euro grindhouse directors, he's probably the most prolific guy that I know of. Even, I've been doing a lot of work on and shows on Lucio Fulci, who's my favorite Italian director. But I noticed Jess Franco has even more films, and like somebody like Lucio Fulci has a huge catalog of things that I've been getting to and buying slowly. But James Jess Franco's stuff is just I mean, he's got hundreds of movies. Like it's unbelievable. He's probably right now he's probably the most prolific director that I know of. The only other director that I can think of that might rival as far as like how many movies he's put out would be Akira Kurosawa, who is one of my favorite directors, a Japanese director. Highly, highly prolific. I mean, at least 100 movies that I know of offhand that he directed during his career. But Jess Franco is more almost in the area of like hundreds of films, and it's amazing. And I've done so like over the years. I know I've seen some of his films because his whole heyday was in the 70s and 80s. Doing all these great exploitation, giallo horror films and real sleazy films like during that period. So during the times of VHS, this stuff was everywhere. So I know I've seen some of his films, but lately I've been really discovering his work, and it's amazing. He's one of my favorites. And I did a show. I've been buying a few of his movies. I have about four of his movies now, and I did about three different reviews of some of his other films. One of the last ones I did on him was a movie he did, Angel of Death, which is an amazing kind of Nazi exploitation film, which is such a great movie. And recently, I just got this. This is Faceless. This came out in 1988, and this movie is like it's a masterpiece. Like in some ways, it's almost unlike anything I've seen before. It's a total like grindhouse sleaze fest. Very much, I would say it has a real like giallo kind of vibe to it because of the narrative. It's got this mysterious element to it. It's got all these really interesting plot twists and turns. And it doesn't it doesn't have this like I'm never really when I watched this I was never really sure where it was going to go, and it had this level of where it was really unpredictable. And the gore in this movie is over and over the top and out of bounds. Like, I mean, it's super gory and super violent. It's super sleazy, but it's just so amazing. 1988, and the Blu-ray transfer of this film is spectacular. There's like 3 hours of interviews, um, that's just spectacular. In one of the interviews, there's a interview with a guy who does lots of he has lots of books on you know uh, the horror exploitation world, particularly around the 80s, and he was talking about how he was making the analogy of like say a couple of directors that are well known, that are known for having like this huge body of work, but he was saying, well, someone like Jess Franco has that, but he's like, at an even higher percentage of movies that he's put out, and where you're talking like hundreds of films, to where there's like so many films that a lot of people haven't even seen yet because he was just so prolific, and it's pretty staggering how much work he did. And and again, like I've seen, like I said before, there's definitely films of his that I probably I had seen growing up during the VHS period, and these films were on cable. I know I remember seeing as a kid Vampire Lesbos, which came out in like '72, I believe, and that was one movie I remember seeing as a kid. Um, this one, Faceless, I'd never seen before, and this movie is just completely bonkers. The whole story of the scenario of the film is basically centered around this like mad scientist, but he's basically or a mad doctor. He does like plastic surgery and he does these facelifts, and so there's this doctor who conspires to like capture these women and basically perform these surgeries on them against their will. And there's a couple of scenes in particular that involve facelifts that are, and like for me, I have a pretty high tolerance for violence. It usually doesn't. It usually takes a lot for something to kind of make me squeamish or to make me kind of cringe. But there's a couple of scenes in this film that generally I was like almost looking away, and I was like, "Holy mackerel, it's going there!" And I was just like, "Wow!" And the practical effects in this film were just pretty amazing. I was, you know, in the documentary about this too, they talk about how this film was, trying to compete with like a lot of the American horror that was coming out. Like there's a real famous magazine called Fangoria, which came out in the '80s, where it always covered everything, covered everything related to the horror world. A lot of the slasher films, and it was also during the age, so a lot of those films were, was becoming part of our pop culture here in America. Friday 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, Sam Raimi, all of that stuff was becoming, as American as apple pie. And Fangoria really put a lot of those films and horror on the map. Like officially, where people commercially were seeing the stuff, and it was becoming this viable, industry. And it was also during the age of, and probably the greatest time of, let's say, practical effects for horror films. And the greatest, guy in that field is Tom Savini. He did, he did work George Romero. He worked on the Friday 13th films. I mean, just a legendary, uh, you know, Maniac. He did the effects for Maniac, which is like probably my favorite slasher movie of all time. Bill Bill Lustig's Maniac, and Tom Savini's actually in it. But basically, Tom Savini was the man. He was doing all of the effects for all of the horror films and all the slasher films that were coming out during that period. And so when this movie came out, they were trying. Jess Franco was trying to kind of compete with that market, with the American market, because it was so huge. And now it was like suddenly slasher films and horror films were now not just an underground thing, like which they still were, but especially with the Italian horror films that were coming out, which were huge, but they were still kind of underground. They weren't getting that, um, they weren't becoming like those films weren't necessarily becoming like a household name, like say Friday the 13th, but there was still a huge market. But Fangoria and during that time in the '80s, suddenly it became this commercial, respected thing to a degree, and it was making lots of money. So Jess Franco kind of set out with this film to try to compete with that, and to a degree, because these are classic exploitation films, tried to exploit that and try to do his own version of that. And so like the practical effects in this film were just like outrageous. I mean, just amazing. Um, and it's super funny. It's this whole, it takes place in 1988, so there's this whole like kind of thing of where they're kind of making fun of people who are pretty wealthy and are doing lots of cocaine and wearing fancy clothes, and there's like a whole critique of that. And there's a lot of humor in this too. It's got everything. There's and then one of the coolest things about this film is the juxtaposition of where on one hand it's really horrific and incredibly disturbing, and on the other hand, the way it's shot, the cinematography, the lighting, and also the comedic aspects of the film. It's a gorgeous film visually to look at, and it's got this light, almost popcorn, pop culture kind of vibe to it. But on the other side, it's very it's very twisted and very dark. One of the reviews on here kind of sums it up. I felt, this one reviewer kind of regarded this as being one of Jess Franco's greatest movies, and he said basically it's a stylish mix of glamour and grindhouse sleaze, and that is the most accurate description of this movie that I can think of. It's got these two things of on one side it's incredibly sleazy and kind of deranged, but then it's also gorgeous and beautiful. So it's really cool. You have this, like both of those polar opposites to a degree are mixed together to create this like beautiful kind of piece of art, even though it's like super sleazy and you know and trashy. But that's the thing that I love about these films is that it has that, particularly around films that are kind of inspired by like the giallo thing. They have this really great juxtaposition, horrific and beautiful all at the same time. But this is Jason Dean and Jess Franco. He's the man, and I'm looking forward to buying more of his movies and doing more reviews of his films. I have another one that I picked up that I'm really excited about watching. So he's kind of emerging as one of my favorite directors. But this movie is a masterpiece. Faceless, 1988. You can't get any better than this. So thanks again. This is Jason Dean. you get a chance, please like and subscribe to my channel. And I really appreciate the support. And we will see you soon. Have a great day.